Hello, sixth grade scholars. This is Miss Kernan coming at you live from my office and hopefully finding you in good spirits and ready to jump into our first distant learning history lesson. This is my first ever Screencastify, so please bear with me as I muddle through some of the nuances and different things that I'm learning moment by moment. I am excited for an opportunity to practice that growth mindset we were always talking to you guys about. So I appreciate your patience and flexibility. Today we're talking about lesson 21, which is the 3 Chinese philosophies. If you have your textbook ready with you, these pages start on 233. It's also written right here if you would like to reference that. If you're a textbook kind of a fan, we're on page 233. If you are not working on your computer and you prefer the hard copies that you picked up or may have printed out, oopsie, that's backwards. Sorry. Imagine this isn't backwards. You would be working out of the packet that has lesson 21 at the top here. So our first activity we always start with is our intro activity. And on the computer, it's a little backwards. So you'd want to slide past the intro text first and go straight into that preview. My first attempt at a Screencastify video was 23 minutes long, and I was supposed to make it 5 to 10 minutes. So in an effort to save more time, I'm going to allow you all to pause my video right now and read this preview section and do the activity for yourself. Go ahead and press pause. Did you do it? Awesome. Okay, so after you've done the preview activity, then we'll scroll back up. We have our vocabulary terms here. There are 8 different terms they want us to know for this section, and you can find the definitions over here on the vocabulary cards tab right here. You can also click straight on the words themselves, and it takes you to the vocab cards there. So there are multiple fun ways to get where you need to go. Back to business, though. So after you do the vocab, many of you have a Google Doc. I believe that us teachers do it a slightly different way with everybody, but if you have a Google Doc or if you're doing it on a piece of paper, find those definitions and make sure to add those in to your document the way that your teacher prefers that. After you're done with that, go ahead and read the introduction so we can set the scene. And then when you're done, let's move on. I'm going to let you press pause really quickly so you can read that introduction, and I'll meet you on the next page. All right, you're back. Hopefully you had a good time reading. We are jumping in. Before we start to talk about the 3 different philosophies, we need to set the scene. What was going on in ancient China that led to all of these different philosophers to come up with these different ways that they believe the country should best be run. So in this first section, make sure you're looking for those big ideas. Just as a friendly reminder with our text, I always encourage you guys to press that main ideas button first. It's the easiest and best way to really pull out the most important information that the text wants us to know. You also now have the ability to do highlights, just like we do in StudySync. Yay! Who's excited about annotating? I am. Mrs. Walswick and Mrs. Scales are all super pumped about this. So make sure you play around with that. That is something that's new to us, but luckily we're kind of experts because of StudySync. So we can make our own highlights there. And it might not let me because I'm just a piddly teacher, but I think you guys will be able to make some neat notes there. Parents, if you're watching this, another really neat capability of TCI is this button right here. It allows the text to be read aloud in a very strange robotic voice, but it is a helpful tool for students to practice their reading fluency as well. So this is how we can kind of double hit that at home, practicing reading fluency and reading nonfiction texts. So we're all about that too. All right, so scholars, go ahead and read this background information about the Warring States period that really led to these philosophies. Do the activity that comes along with that and check your answers. And then jump into answering the questions. Please always make sure we're writing 6th grade worthy responses. So that includes capitalizing beginning of sentences and all of our proper nouns, correct punctuation on everything, and full complete thoughts that encapsulate what the question's asking. We want to write in those complete sentences. Each section, as always, is set up with the same types of questions once we get into the philosophies. So we'll show a couple of examples that way. But, if you are working online and you're not as familiar with the tools, spend some time playing around with the tools to see what you're capable of doing. But your best friend is this button. Oopsie, not that one. This button right here. If you're not an artist and you don't care for drawing on a computer screen, this has all of the shapes you'll ever need. So if we need to show a king, I might look in government and see if I find something that that I think represents a king, and maybe I pick. Well, this one isn't that great, but maybe the king has ultimate power, so I'm going to pick a gavel for the king to represent him. So there's different tools you can do there for my non-artists in the room. Alrighty, so go ahead and pause me and take a second to read section 1 and complete your questions. See you on the next section. All right, scholars, I am getting the tick-tock of time. I've got to wrap this up. So section 2, section 3, and section 4 are the 3 different philosophies. So each section is set up the same way with the same types of questions, just inserting the different responses there. I did want to spend a second just showing you, if I could scroll us through to the bottom. The last question has a picture, and it's the same in your packets too if you're working from the packet. And they want you to write a caption that shows what could be going on in this picture. How does this picture show what Confucianism stands for, what the big main idea of Confucianism is? And so your caption should really show your teachers, I understand what makes Confucianism different from Taoism and from legalism. So spend some time. A text box will be your best friend there. Just click text box and do your typing right away. Then you can move it, you can play with it, you can make it bigger, what have you. Something my students have run into that we've troubleshooted is if you try to move the text box right away, it does some funky, weird stuff. So just make your text box, type your answer first or type your caption first, and then you can move it. Alrighty. So I'm going to pause. Well, you're going to pause me, and you're going to read through the next 3 sections about each of the different philosophies. And I want you to think about how they might tie into that beginning activity, that preview activity about how schools kind of have different systems set up. And that will also prepare you for our final activity, which I'll explain to you as soon as you're done reading these sections. I'll see you in a little bit. All right. Hopefully you have become experts now on Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism. The last activity is my all-time favorite, and I know Mrs. Walswick and Mrs. Scales also love this one. So we are so excited to see your answers, and parents, it's super fun. So really encourage you guys to follow these directions. So I am going to spend my last few minutes explaining the summary. So if you scroll to the summary page, obviously we read our summary, we click on our main ideas to make sure, there aren't any on this section. And this will really help guide us in our final activity. This is some vocab practice, which is always helpful as we, prepare for activities at the end. But the processing has 5 questions for you scholars, and it's important that you go in order and follow the directions. So the first one, you are going to describe your family's homework policy at home, and which of the 3 philosophies you think your family uses for homework. So for example, I grew up at my house. When we came home, we had to do our homework first before we could play with our friends, before we could go to any of our sporting practices. We had to sit down and do our homework, and we had to sit at the kitchen table all together, and we couldn't listen to music, and my mom was like hovering over us. So as a kid, I definitely thought my parents had a legalist a view of how we have our homework policy. So think about how your homework policy is at your house, and which of the philosophies it ties the most in with. Then so that's number 1 and number 2. Number 3 is you are going to teach your parent or guardian about these 3 Chinese philosophies. So you got to be a really good teacher. Take your notes. You can look at the main ideas. You can look at any of your annotations that you made. Teach them what they need to know about the 3 different methods. Then you're going to ask them what they think their homework policy is at home, which is a really fun fun exercise in seeing how different people approach their perspectives on this. Go ahead and type their response here as if you're a stenographer in the courtroom here. So type what they say and their explanation of why they think that is the philosophy that they have at the house. And then the final piece is you are going to compare your answers to number 2 and your parent guardian's answers to question number 4 and see, do you guys match up? Are you both like, yes, we both feel like it's a legalism approach to homework policy, or maybe you think it's legalism, but your parents are like, no, it's actually more Taoist, and we kind of let you figure it out on your own. So anyways, I don't want to give away too many hints, but have so much fun doing this activity. It's a really fun one to engage. Maybe over the dinner table, you can teach your whole family about the 3 Chinese philosophies. It has been so fun to teach you my first Screencastify. Keep your fingers crossed this one works and it wasn't too long. I'm going to pause it now so they don't cut me off. And hopefully my next one will be better and a little more succinct. We miss you guys so much. Take care, all right? We'll talk to you later. Oh, of course, now. See, I can't. Stop it. You guys, I can't stop it. Okay, now I'm stopping it. Goodbye.